You read the book. That was a test. Before the book came out, when I gave this talk, trust me, nobody guessed Toledo, Ohio. That's why I put the X's over it. And it's very interesting. One of the things I did along the way was write shorter pieces about what I was finding. And I wrote an article in this special issue of the American Prospect called The Green Challenge, looking at where we stand on creating green jobs. And I did a comparison of Austin, Texas, and Toledo, Ohio, both which were trying leapfrogging strategies. That is, trying to create a solar manufacturing industry, and surprising to me, Austin couldn't do it. And you think, Austin, high tech, it's a very green city. What's going on that Toledo has been able to move forward on this when Austin hasn't? So let me tell you a little bit about Toledo's solar economy. What happened is they did the typical economic development that you see in cities of that size, is that you offer subsidies. The line used in economic development circles is shoot anything that flies, claim everything that falls. In terms of anytime there's a company, you offer a subsidy and hope they come, not really a strategy or certainly a focus on a particular sector. And the greater Toledo area decided, gee, that's really not working for us. They had lost about 1/3 of their jobs, and decided to bring someone on with a very different entrepreneurial, innovation-based approach. And so they totally switched their economic development strategy to focus on new technologies. The other thing going on is the University of Toledo, for the past 25 years, had been a leader in solar research. Who would have guessed that? Why is that the case? Well, it has to do with the glass industry. And if you really think about it, what is a solar panel but not a glass product? And some 25 years ago, someone from one of the glass companies was doing research that got the idea of thin film research, or thin film solar. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Toledo was concentrated in the auto glass industry. And what is a windshield if not a thin film? You can have antennas embedded, you can have shading, but there's thin films that things are embedded in. That same technology applies to making thin film solar panels. The other thing they did was combine university research and commercialization to create an incubator so that small businesses could get started there, and provide incentives for solar production. Now, the state was a little behind the game in supporting them, but Ohio did develop a renewable portfolio standard and create a fund that pumped about $18 million into the solar research facility at the university. And so it was kind of a perfect storm of factors that would allow solar to thrive in an old industrial city like Toledo. And as a result, they have First Solar, which is the person I told you about 25 years ago, the founder of it, that started his research there. Sunlight, and I'll tell you a little bit about these in a minute, Solargistics. Right now they have a little over 5,000 people employed in 15 research and manufacturing enterprises in the solar industry. So if the story ended here, this would be a very, very good success story, but it doesn't. Let's talk a little bit about First Solar. First Solar put its first plant in Perrysville, Ohio, suburb of Toledo. It employs about maybe somewhere between 650 and 700 people, so it's a pretty big facility. Within 2 years, they had started to expand. The trouble is, they expanded in Malaysia. And currently, you can see the difference between the facility in Ohio and the one in Malaysia, which is on a 100-acre site. And they also expanded in Europe. Why? Because Germany was offering the incentives with their feed-in tariff and purchasing of solar products that it made more sense. Ohio was behind the game, and so they didn't have the demand either in Ohio or a lot of the neighboring states. So it turns out they had a lot of incentives in Malaysia, and in fact used the Malaysian plant to ship the product back to the United States. Now, you might say, boy, that's a really bad company, but they're really operating quite rationally in the environment in which they were created. So this isn't a story about Toledo did it wrong. There's a whole series in the Toledo Blade that'll lead you to believe that. It's just that our country isn't keeping up to help the cities and help the states with this strategy. Here's another business that's just starting to shift that came out of University of Toledo research. It's a husband and wife team. He's a professor at the University of Toledo and is the founder of Steve Weathers, who's the head of the Regional Growth Partnership, tells a story to me. They came in about 8 years ago with an idea that they were going to make this solar product embedded in building materials. They're scientists. What do they know about starting a business? And he helped them develop a business plan, and from that they were able to get venture capital, they were able to get support from the state, and start their company. Now, they are already talking with China about their second plant. So the same kind of thing going on with this particular case. So part of the problem, if we look at it, this is from 2008, but I think is still pretty current in looking at the trends. If we look at the top 10 on the left, PV manufacturers in the world, and the top 10 wind turbine manufacturers, what you will notice is that the U.S. is not very well represented on this list. The leadership has come from Germany, Japan, Spain, Denmark, where they were using feed-in tariffs and other national policies to focus on these industries that they thought were going to be the leading industries of the next several decades. Well, the United States didn't do that. If we were to look at the current one now, the only difference we would see is more Chinese companies up on that list. So what's the problem? Well, the problem starts with research and development. If you look at the top diagram, it shows U.S. non-defense investment in research and development. Okay, let's see if I can